Good morning. Um, Thank you for joining me. And I love today's message. It actually blew my mind. It took me a while and a lot of sitting with it before I could even really kind of comprehend it. Sometimes Spirit shows me stuff and it's like I can't wrap my brain around it. And they're just kind of like, well, we just need you to accept it as the truth and we'll explain it to you later or whatever. And it's kind of one of those things for a while. Um, so last week I touched on how spirit doesn't require acknowledgement to work through us, and how Einstein was an atheist and he was hella plugged in. Um, but he was kind of an idiot savant spiritually because he didn't acknowledge that, so he just thought it was his brain, and this is it, and so this is what his purpose was just that. Um, and so I sat with that after, processing after I'd made the video and all that, and so spirit sort of moved it to a different place. And this is where the mind blowing information came before the explanation came. And so when I was, so what they showed me was that where he lost out, obviously, is if he had known that was spirit and that he could apply that to any subject or arena, that he would have been just as brilliant in any subject or arena. And so I sat with that and I was like, yeah, I mean, he was brilliant, so I'm sure he was just brilliant all the way around, right? And so, like, uh, but Spirit was like, no, you're not getting it. So then the next piece of information came, and this was where I was like, every. So what Spirit showed me is that the reason he was okay. How do I explain? They said every single person. Let me just get out the mind blowing thing first before I. What they said was every single person, if they trusted their self in the level the way he did in that arena, would be just as brilliant in any arena. So that what they're saying is it's actually not our human mind limiting us the way our physical bodies do, as far as like, athletic or whatever. Our humans minds, that's not a thing. And so I was like, so everybody, and I'm thinking of people that I don't consider very you know everybody in everything, and I was even including myself. Like, you're telling me that if I'd had confidence, you know in physics, that I could have been as brilliant as Einstein. And Spirit was like, that's exactly what we're saying. And I'm like, pause. So I sat with that. And what Spirit showed me is, even without Spirit being acknowledged, and then so they showed me little Kim, me. So they were showing me as a little girl, and let's say from the time I was born, before I ever picked up a crayon to learn letters or numbers, that somebody or everybody was saying, you know what, Kim, you are brilliant when it comes to math. I mean, when you're talking about numbers, buddy, you are through the roof. Like, no one can top you. Math, you are fucking brilliant. And that I would have been. And that's what Spirit's saying. That's what would have turned on my confidence in my own voice in math. And so therefore I would have plugged in and been listening to myself and trusting myself. Sorry, Spirit overwhelms me. Sorry. I'm not sad. They just overwhelm me. Back up so I can talk. Ugh. Mm, rude. Whew. So yes. So if I'd have been told, or every time you pick up a pencil, everything you write, the stories, they're just fascinating. You should write. Then I would have plugged in and trusted the stories and the imaginative shit coming in my mind, which is Spirit. So on the flip side, when you tell a child that's not really your arena, you know, a child comes home struggling on one math test, and you're like, well, it makes sense, Johnny, because I'm not very good at math and you're a lot like me. Bloop, you just severed it. You just severed his plug to Spirit in that arena. He's no longer going to trust himself. So that's done. And that is what Spirit was showing me. And I'm like, that's fucking wild, right? And so I'm just looking at my notes, make sure. Yeah, you're not good at something is a lie. In fact, I have a friend who was telling me, and she's brilliant. Like, she's known as her for her intellect. Like, there's nobody that knows her. If you're going to describe her in 5 words, you're at least going to pick 2 that have to do with her intellect. Um, and she came from a very good family. Her both parents were educators, so they were, they were on it, doggone it, with all of that. And so Jen, and I can't remember what she struggled on, if it was something, but something came up where she struggled with something or a test or something. I can't remember what it was. And both of her parents were like, well, sweetheart, that makes sense. Neither one of us are really good at math either, you know? And that was that. And then she got a job at a theater, and most of her job ended up being having to do with numbers, and she excelled. She rocked it. And so she said, when I gave her this concept, she was like, I always wondered that, because once I had excelled at it, I was like, you know, no. So, but she had accepted that as a reality for that moment. And if she had never been put in a job, because she's never trying to get jobs that have to do with numbers, because she didn't think that was her thing. And so once she was doing it and she started trusting herself, bippity boppity boo, she was rocking it. And so that's what Spirit was showing me. And so that we should always, with kids, we should always tell them whatever it is that they're doing, that it's kicking ass. Like, it's great. That drawing's great. That song you wrote's great. Because even if it's not by this world's standards, it's a physical evidence of them plugging into Spirit. So it's almost like a tangible prayer, right? Like, they wrote a story. It doesn't matter if it interested you or if by this world if anybody's going to publish it, but it was a time that they were plugged into Spirit and putting down information from that time. It's a physical manifestation of a prayer, and that we should never sever that in ourselves or anyone else. And so now, knowing that, we can all, like, back up. So what are the things that you think you suck at? Well, go sit with that and ask, what trauma is it that you need to heal that severed that language to Spirit, that specific arena, in a way that you could connect to Spirit, and go sit and try to heal that. And then bloop, you'll be brilliant in that. And Spirit, as long as you're trusting your gut, it's all about trusting your gut. When you tell a kid they're good at something, they're good at algebra, they're good at American history, they're good at whatever, when they're studying it and doing it and applying, they're trusting themselves, aka Spirit, the plug. That's where we get our info. They're trusting that. And so Spirit's able to deliver their brilliance through us. What they're showing me is our brain is nothing more than a computer. So you unplug Spirit from that, and we're literally is turn your computer off, close it down. It's not doing anything. So the brilliance isn't coming from your own brains, us arrogant idiots. Like, it's Spirit. A kid doesn't come out playing, classical music on a piano by 3.5 years old from this computer. No, it's Spirit. Paper found Lynn's picking up, trying to blow all my notes everywhere. Ah, yes. So another thing, so knowing that, so moving on from that. So now we know we can be brilliant in all things. So it's like, well, okay. So let's say we have our child where we've been able to all perfectly praise everything. They're confident in everything. They're plugged in as AF, Well, then how do you know what your purpose is? Because then you're good at everything, right? And typically that's kind of how we have found our way through life. Like, that wasn't great. This is much easier for me. This is much more my jam. Well, it's what gives you the desires when you're plugged in, when you're living in the flow, not all severed and trauma responsing life. That doesn't count. That's a different episode. When you're plugged in, Spirit makes you excited about the things that are serving your purpose. So even though I could have been, brilliant AF in physics, just like Einstein, that's not why I'm here this go round. So physics would have not been appealing to me. as it wasn't, but we don't know if it was because I wasn't good at it or whatever. But so that's how it's like. So then that's the next thing you need to teach your healed children, or untraumatized children, is listen to that gut on what excites you, what makes you happy, what makes you feel the most plugged in, what makes you feel the most inspired, the most excited, all those things. Well, then that's how you determine which direction to go. Even though I might have been brilliant at math, it didn't excite me, right? And so therefore, I'm not going to create my whole purpose in life around something that's math related. And so that's how, even though you can be good at everything with spirit, and trusting yourself, spirit will guide you and make you excited about the things that serve your purpose, and very not excited about those that don't. So that was very interesting, which I love, because it's, again, teaching children to listen to their inner self, teaching children to hear spirit within you, because that is where spirit talks to you. It's not external. It's not external. It's in there. Ah, so then, as I sat with that and kept processing it with the, okay, so everybody. And one of the things that came up was I have a sister who has Down syndrome. And so I'm like, okay, well, she's an everybody, right? So do y'all mean even she could be brilliant in all things? And so I sat with that, and what spirit showed me was, it at first I tried to apply, because I kept waiting for the, well, there's special angels sent here to teach us this, or this, so that somehow puts them in a different category. And I kept getting pushback on that, like, like a square peg in a round hole, where I was like, that's got to be it, right? Because it can't be that it's including her, right? And spirit was just sitting there waiting on me to finish fighting them, and they said, no, it includes her. If they had total confidence in their inner voice, they would also have access to any information that we have access to. But because they're told from birth by the world, by us, by everything, because of, well, doctors, I mean, everybody, I mean, and they're told of their limitations, and that they are limited, and that they are, and so they don't trust their own voice, right? It doesn't mean that they're not unique. It doesn't mean that there's not, special needs, that they, different needs. Thank you, spirit. Different needs that they have, but they still have access to the brilliant information through spirit. So even with that, she has different needs than her siblings, us. If she had been told by the world, and if we'd have known this information, told by the world and by all of her family and everybody, that it should, instead of it being like me saying my vibe is this, and this, and with my sister that has Down syndrome, I should have been asking her, what's your vibe? Because she's actually got more gifts than I do naturally. And spirit showed me that when you have limitations physically, a lot of times you have more spiritual gifts, but she wasn't told to trust all of those. Right. And so they're severed. Like, she can't hear, she doesn't know what the spirit sounds like over her own critical mind, and over we saying that we know better. And so actually, that she does have access to all of that information. She just needs to learn to trust herself in a world that tells her not to. Yes, and that's another thing too, is they showed me, like, um, the way we measure, like, somebody's handicap or not, or is we measure it in a capitalistic way. And so spirit doesn't do that. Like, we made all that shit up. So spirit doesn't do it. Like, you're like, well, she still struggles in math, and and blah, 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 and she can't write an S. Like, no, they don't. That's not how they measure stuff. And like, she should have been, like, in a perfect world, we would celebrate when we have a child that what we could now call handicap is born, because they're actually have so many more heightened spiritual gifts. They're here to give us messages, and we squash that because we're measuring it in a completely wrong way. So then sitting with that, and then I was processing all of this with my friend Jen, and she said that, she's like, that makes total sense. She said, but what about someone whose disability makes it where they're unable to speak? They cannot communicate verbally. And I was like, that's a damn good question. And I'm going to sit with that, later and see what we get. Because I'm all about coming back and doing the debate with spirit, right? I'm like, all right, like I love a good debate, whether it's with breathers or non-breathers. I'm down. So I think I've got, I love when I think I've got the good question. Like, y'all keep saying everybody, but okay. So I'll plug in. And what spirit showed me was, they showed me like someone blind, and how I've heard people who are blind, and especially born blind, who talk about like they know when someone's turned down their street on the way to their house. Like it's not just sound, yes, their other senses are heightened for sure, but it's more than that. They can feel people's energy, and so therefore they're more plugged in, and they're just heightened. So because one physical thing was gone, again, they're heightened. And so they were showing me the person who can't speak. They are very much here and there. Like they can kind of, like where it takes me an hour to get to this through my sunroof to the secret garden. They're just flowing back and forth, just effortlessly. Oh, there's a woodpecker. I was like, what? Somebody's knocking at the door from the inside of the house. Okay. So, it was showing that they're super heightened, and that their inability to form words is not a handicap, because language was made up by humans. So they're able to communicate through energy. In fact, they're excellent communicators through energy. But the people around them, again, born in a perfect world, need to elevate their spiritual skills and gifts, and plug into energy so that they can communicate. And they do. You'll see, I've been around somebody whose child was I can't remember what she had, but she couldn't speak, and she's kind of curled up. And that mom knew, without even looking at her daughter, she would be like, oh, she needs this. She needs this. And she just knew. She just knew there was nothing happening. She wasn't even making noises. Like it was nothing. And she just felt it and would just pop up. And that's the point. So Spirit was saying our inability to all communicate is our handicap, our spiritual handicap, not because of their handicap. Oh, and that they are here to teach us that. They choose to come here. The ones that do come here for that, the whole reason is to try to teach those around them. They're healers. They're trying to teach those around them to plug into spirit more and be more connected. Because everything in life is designed to bring us closer to spirit. Everything. Well, it looks like a delivery. Oh, it's not my present. Well, thank y'all for joining me. And that was fun. I hope it came across that way. And spread the word. Anybody who is rearing children, teaching children, child psychologist, parents, whatever, like grandparents, aunts, uncles, spread the word. Tell them they're good at everything. Praise all the efforts, all the creativity, all of it. And again, if you're not actively and intentionally doing things to leave this world better than you found it, you have completely missed the purpose, or the point. Sorry, the point. So they're distracting me with their good music. Anyway, so I will see y'all next time. See you next week. If you have any ideas, please email me at kimberkeepingitreal, REEL, at gmail.com. I would love to hear any ideas, or if you want to have like I'm loving the idea of having like a guest on and have talks and things like that. So if you have any ideas like that, please drop that in my email. And other than that, I will see you next week, and y'all have a lovely, lovely rest of your day.